She told me I'm a grandma. I can do whatever I want. So I let her, only this time I brought the one thing she absolutely hates into her kitchen. What happened next was small, harmless, and somehow perfect. If you love a little poetic justice, hit subscribe and like and drop a comment where you're listening from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. I need you to picture my mother-in-law, not the cold cinematic villain you see in movies, but the grandma who smells like fresh cookies and lemon dish soap, whose pockets are full of lollipops, and whose smile can melt a room. She's the kind of woman who folds tiny socks and calls your kid her little sunbeam. I love her. My wife loves her. Our son adores her. But there's a line she walks like it's a scenic route, and she does it with a grin. She has this line she's loved saying for years. I'm a grandma. I can do whatever I want. It's funny the first few times you hear it. Cute, even. But she said it the night my 8-year-old nephew ate an entire novelty cake she insisted on, just to see what he would do. He got sick on her tile kitchen floor, and then she said, with frosting on her cheek, "They'll live." The word "they'll" hung in the air like a dare. That line kept replaying in my head the morning at her place, when my son, 3.5, sticky-kneed, fully invested in discovering the wrongest possible time to ask for sweets, asked for cookies at 7:45 a.m. I could feel the small, shrinking panic any parent knows. The need to be consistent, the quiet terror of a sugar rampage before school. I said calmly, "We're doing banana and yogurt. Please don't feed him cookies before 8:30. It was not an argument. It was a parenting boundary. She smiled that grandma's smile, reached into her cookie drawer. A literal drawer in her kitchen that lives under a shelf like a treasure chest, and handed him a chocolate chip cookie the size of a palm. Her eyes were soft. "Oh, come on," she said. "Let him live a little." That was the moment it landed on me like a physical thing. Not rage, more like an itch under the skin. My jaw tightened. My pulse quickened in the neck. I felt the cold little whistle of annoyance climb from my gut to my tongue. It wasn't the cookie. It was the pattern, the ignoring of requests that were ours to make, the shrug that turned into an anthem. "Let him live a little" had become permission to undo our work, to ignore the rules we set for our child. It's an undermining that's quiet but corrosive. I could fix it by yelling, by lecturing, by escalating into some dramatic family meeting, but that would be a battle, and I didn't want a battle. I wanted something that landed softer and made the point stick. Later that day, my wife and I were out, wandering one of those beachy tourist stores, you know, the ones where the smell of salt and plastic collides, and everything glitters with cheap charm. Our son is at Grandma's, the house full of the low hum of daytime TV and the clink of ice in a glass. As we wandered a rack of keychains, some tourist was holding up a tiny plastic rectangle and laughing. Who would want a fart noise maker on a keychain? The laugh pulled me like a hook. My mother-in-law hates potty jokes with a passion. Meanwhile, my 3.5-year-old is in the middle of his farts are the funniest thing ever era. I imagined it, the absurdity of it, the absolute childish joy on my boy's face when something clearly forbidden became available. I knew, in a single clear thought, exactly how to use it, not to hurt, not to humiliate for cruelty's sake, to make a quiet, proportionate point, to hand back a little of that shrug she'd been giving us with a wink. So I bought it. 6 noises, plastic, and utterly ridiculous. I felt a little giddy, which surprised me. The plan was childish. It felt, in a way, right. When I brought it back, the keychain landed on our kitchen counter like a tiny provocation. I waited, watched the little ritual of Granny and grandson. She offered the cookie. He accepted. I told him to try the keychain. He lit up like someone who'd found a flashlight in a cave. The first noise was a tentative squeak. Then he found a rhythm. Press, giggle, and the room filled with that somewhere between hysterical and delighted laugh that only a 3-year-old can manage. My mother-in-law hated it. She hated it in the way people hate stepping on a whoopee cushion. Embarrassed, a little affronted, that someone had brought a vulgar new thing into the sanctity of her kitchen. Her nose crinkled, her lips flattened. She muttered about potty humor. She crossed her arms the way someone crosses arms when they've lost a small private war. But there was also something else on her face I hadn't expected, a small, helpless smile tugging at the corner of her mouth, because our son's laugh was contagious. She kept trying to look stern and failing miserably. She grumbled that she hoped it would break the next day. I leaned against the counter and said quietly, "Oh, come on. Let him live a little." That line landed there like a soft, deliberate echo. I had used her own words back at her, but with the tone turned slightly. The point wasn't to humiliate her. It was to show her how that shrug felt when aimed back at her. It was giving her a taste of the chaos she loved to unleash, a bit of harmless, noisy disobedience that belonged to the child, not to her. 2 weeks later, there was a small family gathering, cousins and aunts, a plate of paper plates, and a church potluck vibe. My mother-in-law was lecturing in that soft way older people have, about how she'd raised kids without being strict, and how kids turn out just fine. Right as she launched into her favorite story about bending the rules, our son, who had been fidgeting at the table, pressed the keychain. The sound burst out, not a single isolated noise, but a perfect trumpeting sequence in 6 parts, a ridiculous rolling chorus of squeaks and honks. For a half-second the room froze. Then a ripple of laughter. From the cousins, from the aunt who had always been on my side about parenting boundaries, even from my wife, who's got that dry chuckle she uses when something lands true. My mother-in-law's face went hot, not because she'd been publicly shamed, because she realized the timing. She had been mid-story, mid-lesson about spoiling, and the universe, meaning my kid with a plastic keychain, had made the lecturing feel absurd. She looked at me then. There was no accusation in her face, only the naked, honest surprise of being reflected. I met her eyes, not with triumph, but with something softer. I shrugged, palms up, and said the line she loved. "Let him live a little." She laughed then, a shaky, genuine thing, and it cracked the armor. Later, when we were loading leftovers into the car, she pulled me aside and said, "Okay, I get it. I didn't realize how much I was doing." Her voice was small. It wasn't a grand apology. It was better, awareness, a promise that she'd try. After that day, she started asking before offering sweets. She still sneaks a candy now and then. She's human. But when she does, she asks if it's okay. There's a tiny private language between us now. She says, "Can I?" And I say, "Not before 8:30, and she rolls her eyes and complies. Sometimes she slips, and the kid presses the keychain, and we both laugh. That's the point. Consequences that teach without permanently wounding. I tell you all of this not because I think I'm a master strategist. I'm not. I'm a dad who got tired of small undermines and small losses. I wanted to protect the rhythm of our family without burning a bridge. The fart keychain worked because it was equal parts absurd and unavoidable, the perfect nudge. If you've been on either side, the parent who's had their rules ignored, or the grandparent who thought a little indulgence was harmless, I'll say this: communication matters, and sometimes the lesson lands better with a laugh than a lecture. Justice doesn't always have to be dramatic. Poetic justice can be a plastic keychain and a giggling kid on the kitchen floor. If you liked that tiny serving of low-stakes justice, hit subscribe and drop a like. Tell me in the comments, what's the funniest, most satisfying way someone's ever had to learn a lesson in your family? I read every story. Thanks for listening, and remember, sometimes the best revenge is a laugh that teaches.